Today on the TMZ Podcast.
Welcome to the TMZ Podcast. Harvey Levin here.
Charlie Neff here.
Jason Beckerman.
Courtney here.
So, we all back from vacation finally?
Yes,
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Back to reality.
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to start with a really, really sad, devastating story that we broke yesterday on the website. Bob Saget died. He died in a hotel room in Orlando, and we do not know the cause of death. They're saying it's not drugs, it's not foul play, but it's going to take a bit for them to figure exactly what happened. He was not responding apparently to calls. The security came in and they found him. What I find, I got to tell you, the outpouring, not just generally, but from the community and comedy is really stunning. And I have to tell you, before we broke this story, we talked to some comedians, and they were just devastated to a person.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and you start looking at like what Pete Davidson just posted today. He never posts. What Pete Davidson said is almost defines Bob Saget.
Yeah, he came along and said that he was, when Pete was struggling through some mental health issues, he turned to Bob Saget. Bob Saget was there for him, really offered him a lot of consolation and really some kind words that helped Pete get through some very difficult times. And it's two people that I don't think that, at least I was unaware that they even knew each other.
Well,
no,
he
because he
went
said that he stayed on the hours on the phone with his mom to think of different ways to help him with what else that they could
to
do.
find doctors.
Yeah, to do anything.
I think everybody knows him as America's dad, too. And of course, this is coming on the heels of losing Betty White, America's grandmother. And so
it's just so
sad.
shocking because he posted 17 hours before that he was in Jacksonville and that he was so surprised that he was doing a 2-hour show. And he was like, I'm addicted to this shit again. And so it's just so crazy because he was posting on social media. He was being active. He was on tour. And then just to find him dead in a hotel, it was shocking and so sad.
And one of the, I'm not going to say who, but one of the comedians that I spoke with before we put the story up was telling me exactly the same thing, that he had such a rough time during COVID and the thrill of getting back on stage. And it really parroted what Bob Saget had said.
Yeah.
And they all it is a real community.
Yeah.
I mean, much more so than most jobs.
Yeah.
This is a real family.
Yeah.
And you feel it when you talk to, a lot of people in comedy.
Yeah, I mean, they spend these 12 hours a day together, sometimes long into the nights until 2 and 3 in the morning, playing these clubs, these junkets, especially when you're a young comedian. And you really do develop this sense of community. And Bob Saget had become sort of the dad or the granddad of this community in many, many ways. And he made a huge impact on a lot of people. What's interesting to me about Saget is he reinvented himself after the Full House days. Mm-hmm. He's most famous for that. He then started doing sort of edgier stuff. I remember he had a great sort of 4 or 5 episode swing on Entourage where he was this really filthy, sex-driven character.
You're skipping over what my generation knows him for, America's Funniest Home Videos.
Oh, there is
that was iconic.
He was a great host on that.
My generation doesn't really know him as a comedian. We know him from America's Funniest Home Videos or maybe a little bit of Fuller House. And when you go to San Francisco, it's always fun to get a photo in front of the cute little houses. And
but I did forget about Entourage. His character on that
Oh,
one.
yeah.
So he did transform on it.
Betty White and Sidney Poitier, who also passed very recently.
Right.
I think these are 3 of the most beloved people, universally beloved, not a bad word said about any of them. Of course, Betty White and Sidney Poitier, they were very old. It was their time. And it's so shocking with Bob Saget because he was only 65. He had just done the comedy show.
And he's alone in a hotel room. You never want your last moments to be like that.
Awful.
Yeah.
Awful.
Well, and John Stamos said that he's never going to find another friend like him.
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
that was such a sad post.
I know.
It's just really heartbreaking, but just the love that has come out is pretty incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to move on. I really want to talk about Djokovic. Novak Djokovic now has the all clear from immigration in Australia to stay there.
Yes.
And presumably to play. So I guess the logic behind it is that he had COVID, and I guess what he's saying is that I have a certain amount of immunity now from getting it again, and I guess that's the basis on which they said there was a medical exemption.
Right.
So explain to me why the anger? I mean, look, you may agree with that or disagree with that, and it sounds like the guy is anti-vax, and I get that. But it seems like there's a different level to him. Why are people so anti-Djokovic?
Well, because I think that people think that he's getting special treatment for being able to get into the country and being able to go play.
Right.
Because you normally can't get in, and you normally won't be able to like fight the courts and win. He is kind of getting special treatment. No,
Well,
I feel like it.
The
Like
court
I
said,
couldn't go
the
there right
court
now.
said no.
Yeah, I think there's two reasons. Number one is the one you're talking about, right? It seems like here's a wealthy guy who, but for his talent and his money, wouldn't have gotten the exemption because he just wouldn't know how to fight the system. But that's one thing. The second thing is there's just the fact that he's an anti-vaxxer, right? And the majority of people, especially the louder people right now, are pro-vax. And I think that yes, he decided maybe he, under the laws of Australia, could get in and maybe he's playing and maybe it should be lawful and all that's great and the laws are what they are. But there's still this sense that somebody who has decided not to get vaccinated is coming in, potentially jeopardizing other people, whether that's scientifically valid or not, that somebody who's not vaccinated is more dangerous to other people or not. But there's this perception that we're not getting vaccinated necessarily to protect ourselves. We're getting vaccinated because that's what we do as a community to all be in this together and to someday get through this whole thing and we can get past it. And he's not playing by that rule. And I think ultimately that's what it is. If he was just somebody who was vaccinated but had nevertheless suffered from it and couldn't get through for whatever reason, couldn't get through immigration for whatever reason, there'd be a lot more compassion. But because he's anti-vax and because he's a rich dude who gets away with everything, as all rich people do, I think there's two reasons for the animosity.
I think the last thing you said it may be preeminent here. Look, I get the anti-vax thing for sure, but when I was watching this weekend, they were talking about he's just not very popular even in the sport.
Right.
And I don't know whether it's arrogance or what it is, but it just feels like that there's a backdrop of this.
Interesting.
It just felt more, get him than most situations. And then ultimately now the judge has said he has a right to stay.
Right.
So now does he play?
Of
Definitely.
course he
That's what he's
plays.
there for.
I think he plays, but does
Yes.
well, no, but my question is, do the people who run the Australian Open have power beyond what the immigration court had?
But they've already approved him to play,
I
right?
think
He
that's
was there.
right.
He was there to play. He wasn't there to try out to play. He was there to play.
So
Or travel and
will he
just
be
explore.
will he be cheered or booed?
Oh, interesting.
Oh.
I think smattering of both, right? I think mostly booed.
Yeah,
People in
because
Australia are tight.
it's going to be mostly Australians there because other people can't get in.
That's
so
true.
it will be all Australian
That's true.
fans. So
That's true.
I don't think he's going to be cheered.
I think you're right. I think he's going to be booed, and if he wins, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens when he kisses the trophy.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah. No one's going to want to go
does
near it.
win.
Well, I mean, but and now, I mean, the thing now is apparently he was positive on December 16th. He interacted with people, and now they're trying to figure out, did he know? That would be a whole different situation if he knew.
That probably wouldn't affect his status in Australia, right? That just makes him a bad guy or not a bad guy,
Right.
Or whatever he.
But don't you
wherever
have
he was.
to provide like a negative COVID test when you're traveling to a country? So then wouldn't he have tested positive if he was trying to go there?
Well, he did test, and he tested positive on December 16th. The issue is, did he get the results back before he started interacting with all the people that he did? Because there are photographs of him with a lot of, young tennis players and others.
Right.
So that remains to be seen. But I don't know. I just found it really...
It is interesting. I hadn't thought about the fact that he is widely disliked. The stories are out there. The three preeminent tennis players of his generation. It's Djokovic, and then it's
Nadal.
Nadal and Federer. Nadal and Federer are two of the most beloved people in the entire sport that ever have been, great champions. And Djokovic comes up, and he's kind of a jerk, and nobody really likes him. And Nadal and Federer don't really like him, and it's been pretty clear.
Well, and also, if people are rooting for Nadal and Federer, they don't want Djokovic to win because he's about to surpass them.
Well, he is. I think one or two more wins.
Two
He's
more
the
wins.
all-time
Right.
majors champion of
I know.
and I think there's a lot that might be true.
Okay, so now to the absurd. Julia Fox, Kanye's girlfriend, is a big Kardashian fan.
Yeah.
Go figure. I mean,
Everyone's a Kardashian
I know.
fan.
It's hard to
Even
find
the haters are
It's
fans.
hard to find a girl that's not
okay,
at least
so
liking one of them.
So let's now kind of set the table. So she is with Kanye. They have been together for a week.
A
They have
week.
Well, they have been together for a week.
It's been a hell of a week, though.
Yeah, it really has.
He is dressing her. He's making out with her on the floor with his photographer nearby and everything else. So there are a lot of people who are saying, look, is this a real boyfriend-girlfriend type thing, or is this Kanye trying to make Kim jealous?
Well, Kanye did this with Kim Kardashian. When they first started dating, he completely like cleaned out her closet and then redressed her
Transformed
and
her.
like did everything. So I think he is trying to make Kim jealous, be like, look, I created you. I can create someone else just as good as you.
So, but I'm getting to her. So,
She loves this.
She must just
Of course,
love
she
this.
like
Every
released a
girl's dream,
statement about
yeah.
it, saying like how this is like a whirlwind romance, and she's like in it and like excited to see where it
She
goes
like came
next.
to a room and it was all just these amazing designers like for her. Like who wouldn't
Now,
want
didn't
this?
she say something about Kim and Pete? In that she had said that she was happy about it, or there was something.
A nod to the success.
Yeah.
I
of the
feel like
relationship.
yes, but of course you're going to be happy about it because you want this to keep going. As long
Yeah.
as Kim's with Pete,
Yeah.
And the thing is that Hollywood is so small. Everyone knows everyone. Like we know that Julia Rose had done like a photo shoot with Pete Davidson way back in the day, and now she's saying that she's like been a huge fan of the Kardashian show for years, since like what 2007
Yeah.
or whatever.
2007.
You
So,
really
like,
think
everyone's
about
connected.
putting aside Kanye's idiosyncrasies and sometimes weirdness or whatever, isn't Julia Fox leading the exact princess life that you learn about in fairy tales? Like,
Yes.
every girl is like
The
conditioned.
Hollywood princess
Yeah,
life.
amazing,
exactly.
yes.
Where this like, super famous person comes, sweeps you off your feet, wines and dines you, and like, puts
Is
you on
buying-
these
Is
dates that are
jet-setting
Is
you
buying you
all
$20,000 outfits and the whole
Yes.
thing. It is the classic Cinderella story
I-
almost.
This
Yeah.
feels more like supermarket sweep than it does
Oh
Cinderella.
wow!
No, I'm serious. It's like, okay, I'm taking this and this and this.
Get what you can while you can.
And it's all Balenciaga.
Yeah, you're no princess, Harvey. That was you don't understand what it's like for.
I want to talk about something that
Well, wait, do you think Kim cares? That's my thing. Like,
I
do you
think she's just kind of like, the rebounds. Like,
think-
you know how you kind of like,
Yeah.
I don't know,
I
have
don't
like a
think-
side
Don't
eye.
you think she's like, thank God?
yes,
I'm out
he
of this
has
guy.
something to entertain
God.
him now with.
Right.
I think this probably gives her so much relief, and it's the complete opposite effect that what he wanted.
And there's been reports that Kim's only doing like group dates with Pete Davidson. 'Cause
Yeah.
She's like worried that Kanye will like snap. So now that he has like a new shiny object in front of him, it kind of like makes it easier for her
She's
to
quite
continue on.
shiny. She's quite shiny.
okay. I want to talk about something that I did this weekend,
Ooh.
which was essentially.
Oh, you're going to be very disappointed in
Yeah.
a second.
It's gonna be like I went for a swim and then I
Yeah.
worked out at the gym and took a nap.
That was after that.
Oh.
Yeah, those three things are just about right. No nap. But I literally spent the entire weekend, day and night, reading Jamie Raskin's book. Jamie Raskin, the congressman from Maryland, who was the leader, really, in the impeachment fight for the second impeachment of Donald Trump after the insurrection, but also the Jamie Raskin who lost his son to suicide, literally buried his son the day before the January 6th insurrection.
Oh, wow.
He wrote a book called Unthinkable. And this book has just blown me away. It is, first of all, he may be the best writer I've ever read, ever. He has his vocabulary is so expansive and it's so moving, and he can paint such a colorful picture of everything that just the prose in this thing are, I just can't get over it. How good a writer he is and how smart he is and compassionate. But I am telling you that his son was 25 years old when he killed himself. And he did that on December 30th of 2020. And his son was a second-year student, law student at Harvard.
2021, just before the insurrection was.
Well,
Well,
it was
December, so it would have been the year
2020.
before.
December of 2020. My mistake. Okay.
2020. And so he was a second-year law student at Harvard. And he was this great-looking, brilliant. I mean, this kid was so brilliant that it's remarkable how smart this kid was. Had everything going for him, but he was struggling with mental illness. He had, crippling anxiety and depression, and they would try and control it, and it would work for a while, and things would trigger it. COVID really got to him. And what he talks a lot about in the book, and there's an intersection in this book between the insurrection and his son's suicide, that the congressman has weaved together in such an amazing way. But he talks about how he feels like he missed so many signs of his son. And I have to tell you, from my vantage point, he's an incredible father because, I mean, he had showed this kid so much love and they knew about his depression and were really trying to deal with it. But the one thing they didn't talk to him about is suicide. And what Raskin is saying is it is so important to confront it head on and literally ask him, are you thinking of suicide? And I never really thought of it, but he was saying that this needs to be talked about openly. And that
Did he say why he never asked him? Like, were they just nervous about it?
Yeah, he said that there are. It didn't really occur to him because he missed some of the warning signs in the last day. He said, when his son seemed a little bit listless and just not quite himself, but he never suspected that was going on. But he knew there was something a little bit off. And I think he was just questioning himself and saying, look, I've missed things. And he really was, in many ways, beating himself up. But in that, he was trying to work through it. And you see him in the book working through all of this and trying to help other people and talking about these anecdotes, how Nancy Pelosi helped him, where she was just so compassionate with him and would call him all the time and talk about suicide and how it helped him and how he talked to psychologists about this. I didn't know this, but it's important to actually raise that issue. But when you see this struggle embodied in a kid that has everything going for him, and you see these loving parents, it just
Breaks your heart.
Oh my God. And yet, I can't explain this book. There was something about this book that was also so uplifting to hear a guy, who has always been an optimist and who was able to pick himself up the day after he buried his son and go to the Capitol, endure the insurrection, and then become a leader again. It's just,
Yeah.
I'm sorry for
It's
going on and
moving.
on.
Well, what's interesting, I read a little bit about Jamie Raskin, full-fledged genius, right? I mean,
Full-fledged genius.
he was magna cum laude from Harvard undergrad, magna cum laude from Harvard Law School, went on to be a constitutional law professor at American University, and then is one of the impeachment managers in the second time through against Donald Trump. But, a full-fledged genius and intellectual, and I can't imagine what it's like to, at the same time you're living this life in Congress, to also be dealing with a son at home who clearly is showing signs of mental anguish. And then, I can imagine as a parent that you don't want to confront the idea that he might be suicidal because you can't imagine that eventuality. You think you'll work through it.
I just hope he doesn't have any guilt by saying like, oh, there were signs. I wish I asked. Like, you can never.
He does say that in the book. I mean,
How do you not?
He
I'm
feels
sure
it.
as any parent you
But
would.
I got to tell you,
Yeah.
he was, when you read it, he was such a good father.
Yeah.
I mean, such a good father to this kid. And they
But
loved
mental
each other.
mental illness, it doesn't matter how good of parents you have or how rich you
True.
are or whatever. It affects everybody and anybody. And sometimes, a lot of people just hope for the best. You might think, or you might know that someone is struggling, but you hope that they're able to get through it. And I think you have to break that barrier consistently and ask people, like what he's saying. Like, we do need to start asking people, like, how are you doing? Especially during COVID times. A lot of people that didn't even have any mental health struggles started to.
That's true.
So, I mean, now we just have to make sure that everyone is okay going forward. I think it's a great message that he's presenting.
He said in the book something just unbelievable. I think it's about kids under 25. And it was something like they did a survey. How many of these kids thought about suicide in the last 14 or 21 days? I forgot what it was. And it was something like, 1 out of 14 or something crazy
That's
number.
a lot.
And now it's 1 out of 7.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
No, we are going through a really rough time with young people. I mean, it's just, I want to end on a really, this kid, Tommy, his son, was so incredibly brilliant. And I mean, there are a million examples of this where he taught Jamie Raskin things about the Constitution and about impeachment. And I mean, this kid was so brilliant, when he was a young adult. But there was a story that just stuck with me. When he was in middle school, this kid, there was something going on in his school where somebody cheated. And Tommy told his dad that cheating, I mean, if I said to you, why is cheating bad? What would you say?
It's dishonest.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not fair. That's what
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
You know what he said? This is a middle school. He said, the reason cheating is so bad is that it disincentivizes teachers to teach because they know kids are going to take shortcuts. This is a middle schooler
Yeah,
coming
who
up with
thinks-
that concept. I mean, this kid was so incredibly brilliant.
Yeah.
And the book is laced with these stories.
Yeah.
It's so worth reading. It's called Unthinkable.
I want to read it, but I feel like you just told me everything that's in
I
the book.
know.
Can I tell you something else?
Yeah.
It's like
And-
when the
and-
trailer says a lot more
no,
than
no,
the
no.
movie
Yeah.
does.
I'm telling you, I have not given anything away. This book is so good. The way he describes January 6th, I have watched countless news reports on it, read things on it, covered it.
Mm-hmm.
There is nobody who has explained it with the color and the vivid detail like Jamie Raskin, because he was there.
Yeah.
And he knows how to paint that picture. And it's a remarkable book. You just got to read it. Anyway, we will see you Wednesday, folks.
Bye, guys.
Bye.